another. Bought me a gun and I robbed my brother. I'm bad, but I don't care, boys. Gonna be a millionaire.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Well, I think it's the right size to address the very significant problem that we have. You said we've lost 9.5 million jobs. If we were properly measuring unemployment, it would register over 9%. We need both relief for the people who are suffering because of what's happened with the economy. We need to defeat the pandemic. This package really does that. It provides substantial aid. There'll be $1,400 checks going out to the members of 85% of American households, $3,000 payments to children, $3,600 for children under 6, unemployment compensation that will extend through Labor Day, money to address the eviction crisis, to address people who are behind on their mortgage payments.
I made a mistake earlier. I said Fed, that she's with the Fed. I'm talking about the Secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen. My bad. But there she was appearing on ABC with George Stephanopoulos talking about that this $2 trillion package, she said, I think it's the right size to address the significant problems. And then she started going through about we've lost 9.5 million jobs. I want you to stop and think about that. We had those 9.5 million jobs filled when Trump was in office and the economy was booming until COVID hit our shores. And in the next hour, we're going to be joined by a senior analyst for the Center for Security Policy. And more allegations that COVID was a bioweapon in the beginning phase, and either by accident or maybe intentional, it was released. And look what it's done to our economy. Look what it's done to our public. And of course, the deaths. 530,000, I think, at last count in the U.S. And yes, people are suffering. Businesses are closed down. They've been closed for some time. Some will never reopen again. And folks who have lost their money and they don't have a job. Folks who were out there every day working, I mean, they might have complained about the hours and be tired and everything, but by God, they were getting a paycheck. And now that is gone. So we're trying to get them back. But the problem with that $2 trillion package is only 9% at the maximum, 9% actually helping the people that you heard Yellen say we need to help. She said we've lost 9.5 million jobs. Well, sure, we need to help them. She said if we were measuring unemployment right now, it'd register over 9%. 9%. I think we were approaching 2% before COVID hit. And so sure, we need something to help those people. The checks, they will help some, and in some cases, they're going to people that don't really need it. There's no sense trying to break it down now as to how it's going and if it's going to be of value, if it's used properly, if it helps families. Okay, and then they're talking about unemployment to extend through Labor Day. Well, if folks still need help, I see there's some areas here I can certainly give with, I can go along with. And then money to address eviction crisis. Well, we don't, no good time to evict people right now. But I want to remind you, if they cannot pay their rent, if they cannot make mortgage payments, the holder of those properties is now also in jeopardy. The bank wants the money. The bank wants the money. I don't have it. My renters can't pay it. The homeowner can't get it to. Well, we want the money. She went on to say we have 22 million Americans who say they don't have enough to eat. So there's additional money for food stamps. State and local governments laying off 1.4 million workers. They're going to get money. They need to keep those, quote, essential workers on the payrolls. Whether or not they're essential, I don't know. But again, if we're helping people, yes. But the $2 trillion package is filled with pork, and I don't mean anything you can eat. It's filled with all these goodie packages for all the special interest groups. You want to tell me how that $2 trillion COVID relief bill means anything regarding helping deal with COVID by sending money to Planned Parenthood, to the Institute of Arts, to creating an effort to maintain and protect the American Indian language. Give me a break. Oh, and then, of course, the idea is trying to get schools open. I mean, can you get schools open? That's another idea, right? Well, a lot of the money in there that's scheduled to help schools open is going to be spent for 3-4 years down the road. It's not helping today, and I still want somebody to tell me, why can't you just throw the doors open and students come in? You could. They are doing it in many states. They have been doing it. Some students have just missed briefly in school learning. They went back and they've been doing fine and no major outbreak whatsoever. And the biggest super spreader we have right now is illegals coming across the border that the Biden administration is allowing. And even if they check them and they find they're positive for COVID, they don't stop them. I told you last week, the CEO of Greyhound says, this isn't right. Our own customers have not been riding because you told them don't travel anywhere, stay home, so it's cost us money. We've had to lay off people. And now you're going to use our buses. You want us to use the buses for taking care of illegals who probably have COVID, and we're supposed to put them all on the buses and let them go, right? Oh, and I didn't even mention to you a moment ago that it's already been decided that the U.S. is going to house some 3,000 immigrant teens at the Dallas Convention Center. They're going to take 3,000 of these immigrant teenagers and take them to the downtown Dallas Convention Center. Going to be used for 90 days as early as starting this week. The Dallas City Council got the word from the federal government, and here they come. It's going to be housing boys ages 15 to 17. Then they're going to open what they call a decompression center. U.S. and Health and Human Services rushing to open facilities to house these immigrant children currently being held by U.S. Border Patrol, and they'll say, we don't have a crisis. But if we do, it's to be blamed on Trump. So if you're going to go ahead and you're having all these largesse issues to send checks out and help people, and I'm all for helping people, but if you really want to help them, why not take, let's say another 20%, instead of just 8%, take another 20% of that COVID relief bill and redirect it actually to individuals and individual issues and small businesses. That would be impressive. But that wouldn't help their lobby efforts and the future donors that they're after. Well, while she was on there with George Stephanopoulos, Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, he raised a question, which is a very good question. How about inflation, though? Your predecessor, Larry Summers, has warned of the dangers. Economist Mark Zandi says investors are underestimating the dangers. If we get back to full employment, could we see inflation surge? How big a problem is that?
Well, policymaking is about identifying and addressing risks. And the most significant risk we face is a workforce that's scarred by a long period of unemployment. People being out of work, not able to find jobs, can have a permanent effect on their well-being. I think that's the most significant risk. Is there a risk of inflation? I think there's a small risk, and I think it's manageable. Of course there's inflation. You're the Treasury Secretary. You got to know. Have you bought gas lately? Janet Yellen? No, you probably don't. You have the driver fill up the limo and pick you up. Have you looked at the mortgage refinance rates? They're spiking. One key rate still below 3%, but it's going up as of today. There comes some inflation. And then how they're going to pay for it? Well, they're talking about maybe a wealth tax. Maybe that's what they're going to do. Listen to this nonsense. Prices fell a lot last spring when the pandemic surged. I expect some of those prices to move up again as the economy recovers this spring and summer. But that's a temporary movement in prices. To get a sustained high inflation like we had in the 1970s, I absolutely don't expect that. We've had very well-anchored inflation expectations and a Federal Reserve that's learned about how to manage inflation. So I don't think it's a significant risk, and if it materializes, we'll certainly monitor for it, but we have tools to address it.
Yeah, we have things in plan to, if it materializes. Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, still saying, well, if it comes, it is in our face right now. Somebody sent me word the other day that in New York City, gasoline is now $5 a gallon. Now, I don't know if that's right. Of course, you got to also look at all the taxes they're throwing on it. And now when they say a wealth tax, you have to keep in mind, I remember my dad. He said, well, we're just kind of middle income people. But then all of a sudden a tax got put on by the Obama administration, and suddenly we're in the rich category. I never considered us rich. I worked all my life in the oil field, and I'm suddenly rich, at least enough for them to take more taxes. And Biden's first major tax hike is in planning. I'll give you details of that when we continue.